Assalamu-Alikum and welcome back. So our today topic is about the socialist, we can say Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Introduction. Marx was born in Germany. His father was a lawyer, a member of the bourgeoisie or the capitalist middle class. He turned to journalism and became increasingly outspoken in his criticism of political oppression in Europe. He was eventually exiled to England. His domestic life was a scene of almost continuous poverty. Karl Marx and Engels. Marx's name is always linked with Friedrich Engels, 1822-1895 time of period, a fellow German and a lifelong associate. Engels was an upper middle class capitalist. Engels' father sent him to Manchester, England to work in family textile business. So he wrote a strong indictment of industrial slums. Engels detected class distinction. The paternalism of feudalism had been replaced by the paternalism of the factory owner. Marx read Engels' work and admired it, and their collaboration began with the Communist Manifesto of 1848. So, the Communist Manifesto, the first section of the manifesto, bourgeoisie and proletarians, explain the materialist conception of history. So that history of all hit her to exciting society in the history of class struggles. Societies have always taken the form of an oppressed majority living under the thumb of an oppressive minority. In capitalism, the industrial working class, a proletariat, engage in class struggle against the owners of the means of production, the bourgeoisie. So this struggle will end in a revolution that restructures society or the common ruin of the contending classes. The bourgeoisie, through the constant revolutionizing of production and uninterrupted disturbance of all social conditions, have emerged as the supreme class in society, displacing all the old powers of feudalism. The bourgeoisie constantly exploits the proletariat for its labor power, creating profit for themselves and accumulating capital. The proletariat inevitably will become conscious of their own potential and rise to power through revolution, overthrowing the bourgeoisie. And the Communist Party will not oppose other working class parties, but unlike them, it will express the general will and defend the common interest of the world proletariat as a whole, independent of all short-term demands, the implementation of which would be a precursor to a stateless and classless society. Number one is a progressive income tax, second, evolution of inheritances, and free public education. All alternatives of revolutionary socialism are dismissed for educating reformism and failing to recognize the preeminent revolutionary role of the working class. Predicts that a world revolution will soon hatred of the status quo, it must change. Persia in 1848 still believed in the divine right of king and had no parliament, no freedom of speech, no right of assembly, no liberty of the press, and no trial by jury. Let the ruling classes tremble at the communist revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a war to win. Marx was exiled from Belgium. On the next day, a long-awaited revolution broke out in Paris. The new French government invited Marx to come to Paris. Socialism, a set of relations of production that will follow capitalism. The major change that occurred in the transition from capitalism to socialism is that the proletariat now own the means of production. However, under socialism, a remaining trace of capitalism is that economic activity is still basically organized through the use of incentive systems. Reward must still be given in order to induce people to labor. A communist economy would be quite different from socialism. So, the difference between the socialism and the communism. Socialism suggests that contribution is made from everyone according to their ability, but they get back according to the size of their contribution. On the other hand, communism suggests that everyone in society contribute and work according to their ability and get back everything according to their needs. So profits in socialism, profits are distributed depending on the result of every individual's work. But in communism, everyone has free access to all the goods that the community has to offer. In socialism, there is a central government that owns all the means of production, decides on the distribution of goods and make plan for the economy. And on the other hand, in communism, there is no government because everything is owned collectively by every member of the society. In socialism, there is personal and public property, but in communism, there is no private property. In socialism gives the individual the freedom to choose whatever he wants to believe in. But communism rejects all religions. Socialism is primarily economical and can coexist with a variety of political systems, but communism is a political system. These are the main differences. So, Marx's theories of history. Marxian thought combines Hegelian philosophy, French utopian thought, classical political economy. Hegel maintained that history does not proceed classically through a series of recurring situations, but rather moves forward in a straight line progressively by the interaction of a triad of forces. So number one is thesis, second is antithesis, and the third one is synthesis. Because these forces are ideological, it is in the study of ideas, not past event, but that the law of history can be an endless process. All things become gradually more perfect by means of conflict-induced change. Hegel called this process, as well as the method for investigating it, dialectic. Marx perceived a similar process in history. Difference between Hegel and Marx's philosophies was that Hegel's was idealistic and Marx is materialistic. Marx's philosophy, therefore, is called dialectical materialism. Marx's theory of history, the grand questions. Can one develop a theory that explains the different way in which society have been organized over time? The second question is, can this theory be used to predict the possible future organization of society? And the third one, are the societal structures we call feudalism and capitalism part of an evolutionary development capital of being analyzed, or are they merely a result of random historical occurrences? So, one important ingredient in the Marxian system is change. Materialistic or economic forces as the primary determinant of historical change. Marx believed that all societies can be divided into two parts. Number one is the forces of production, the second one is the relation of. So these two parts are the forces of production, or we can say antithesis, the technology used by the society in producing material goods manifested in labor skills, scientific knowledge, tools, and capital goods. They are inherently dynamic. The second force is the second part is the relation of production, or we can say this is relation between one person and another, or social relation and relation between people and things, are property relations. In contrast to the forces of production, which are dynamic and changing, the relations of production are static and past binding. The static nature of the relation of production is reinforced by social superstructure. The social superstructure consists of the art, literature, music, philosophy, jurisprudence, religion, and other cultural forms accepted by the society. Its purpose is to keep the relation of production. In the beginning of any historical period, there is harmony between the forces and relation of production. Over time, the changing forces of production bring about contradiction in the system. The exciting relation of production institutions no longer remain appropriate to the forces of production or we can say technology. These contradictions will manifest themselves in class struggle. Finally, the contradictions will become so intense that there is a period of social revolution, a new set of relation of production. The new relations of production are the synthesis. Marx's economic theories. Marx applied his theory of history to the society of his time. Technology was driving economics to larger and larger production unit. Smaller production unit would be unable to compete with more efficient larger production unit. The exchange relationship between who own the means of production, the capitalists, and who sell only their labor in the market, the proletariat. Proletariat. So, chief characteristics of capitalism. Number one is separation of labor from the ownership of the means of production, and the second one is a society of two classes. So, the most important aspect of this society is the wage bargain between capitalist and proletariat. Price and wage determination. In pre-capitalist economies, human goods were produced primarily for their use value. Commodities were produced for consumption by the producer. Capitalism. Commodities are produced not for their use value but for their exchange value. The exchange relationship developed between the owners of the commodity, the capitalists, and the proletariat. Price and wage determination. The prices of commodities in the capitalist system represent two different sets of relation. Number one is quantitative relationship between commodities, we can say relative prices. And the second one is social or qualitative relationship between individuals in the economy. Wages represent both a quantitative and qualitative relationship between the capitalist and the proletariat. Commodities manifest in their prices certain quantitative relationship. All commodities must contain one element in common that must exist in a certain variable quantities. Marx considered labor as the common element and concluded that it is the amount of labor time necessary to produce commodities that govern their relative prices. The only social cost of producing commodities was labor conceived of the total labor available to the society for commodity production as a homogeneous quantity, or we can say abstract labor. Labor theory of value. The production of any commodity requires the use of a part of the total supply of abstract labor. The amount of abstract labor is measured in clock hours. The relative prices of commodities reflect the amount of this abstract labor necessary to produce the goods. There arises the skilled labor problem. Labor theory of value. The socially necessary labor time. The time taken by a worker with a wage degree of skill possessed by labor at the time. Labor with skill greater than the average is reduced to the average, making an appropriate adjustment. For example, a given laborer produced 100% more than a laborer with the average skills. Each hour of the superior labor would count as 2 hours of the average labor. In this manner, all labor time is reduced to socially necessary labor time. To account for the influence of capital goods on relative prices, Marx used Ricardo's solution that capitalism stored up a labor. The labor time required to produce a commodity is then the number of hours of labor immediately applied plus the number of hours required to produce the capital destroyed in the process. The issues raised by different fertilities of land, the greater productivity of labor on land of superior fertility is absorbed by the landlord as a differential rent. Competition will cause that return on superior grades of land to rise until the rates of the profit on all grades of land are equal. Rent is price determined, not price determining. Labor is the only factor that is determining the relative value of the final product. Production is divided into two parts: the cost of production, the labor time spent on the producing the goods, the super value, the difference between the goods price and its cost of production. Any economy will produce more goods and services than they are needed to pay all the real social costs of production. The surplus created by labor was taken from it because of its lack of ownership of the means of production.